Hello everyone, and welcome to the presentation of the new COVID tracking software for Schaller Corporation. My name is Nick, and today I will be guiding you through the new software that we produced. We are Group 7, and our group members include Kyle Wagner, Dante Thurman, and of course, yours truly, Nicholas Torrey. So to begin this presentation, I would like to briefly touch on how COVID is currently affecting Schaller right now. Due to the pandemic that is occurring and the widespread shutdown of many workplaces from outbreaks, we are seeking to help Schaller prevent outbreaks, stay open, and keep their employees safe. We also understand that nobody in the company is immune to the virus, and there is no vaccine, so keeping track of the potential spread of COVID-19 is crucial to the company's success. Schaller Corporation is a mid-sized automobile part production company that is based out of Chesterfield, Michigan. Currently, they are operating out of 3 separate plants to provide automotive parts to their customers. As of today, the company employs around 175 workers over the 3 plants, meaning that they have many workers to keep track of. Arvid David Bakunis is the Vice President of Manufacturing at Schaller and is also the client for this software. Since he is the vice president, this means that he relies on his workers to produce parts for the customer, and when there is an outbreak, no parts can be made. This gives Arvid David a personal investment in wanting to keep his employees safe. The current bookkeeping system for Schaller employees and their temperatures is a single piece of paper is used to write the name and temperature of an employee by the foreman of the area every day. The sheet is then taken to the managers at the end of the day for them to keep logs of, but there are normally not any interactions between the managers and the information about the temperatures given to them. When an employee with an abnormally high temperature shows up to work, the foreman simply tells the person to go home and then carries on with their day as usual. The main problem with the current system that's in place is the current process for recording the temperatures for employees is simple, yet it is not efficient whatsoever in communicating information to the higher-ups in the company, specifically the vice presidents and president. It is also not in-depth enough to track who may have come in contact with a sick employee. There are also other issues with the current system that are not quite the main issue, but are also worth mentioning. The first issue is that the system does not keep track of employees while they are on break. This is an issue as though it is not the company's responsibility to keep others safe when they are not working. Workers can mingle during breaks outside and could possibly cause the start of a large chain of infections in the plant. Another issue is that it doesn't record if employees interact with one another in the lunchroom. This issue is slightly different as it is indoors and the employees are all taking off their masks to eat and could possibly transmit the virus through the circulated air in the room. The last issue is that there is a tough time trying to determine if an employee was exposed to COVID by another employee in their area. This is a big issue as someone could be carrying COVID for days and be infecting others near them but never know it. Now, before we actually started programming something, we had to decide amongst a whole bunch of alternatives on how to solve the current issue that the plant was having. The alternatives that we came up with were that we trust the employees to monitor their health at home before going to work, have a manager from each department walk around and ask employees how they are feeling, and if they have any kind of COVID symptoms, then we would check up on them with a thermometer again. We construct a program that will track employee health and interactions, or we make no changes. After considering all of our alternatives, we finally came up with a solution. The solution that we came up with was to create an Excel program that allows for inputs of information in the form of the employee's name, the date of a record, the employee's recorded temperature on that day, the employee's job title, what designated area that employee works in, if they will be eating in the lunchroom, or if they are experiencing any COVID symptoms. And the main upside of this Excel program is that it'll be saved under the company drive so that all managers and higher ups will have the information available to them at any time that they choose. After deciding the solution that we wanted to implement, we had to decide what the responsibilities of the software we were building would be. On this, we decided to make 5 responsibilities for the software. The first responsibility is to establish who is responsible for keeping track of temperatures of different employees. The second is to establish who is at different parts of the plants. The third is to show trends in employee temperatures to establish a timetable of who could have been exposed to COVID from a coworker. The fourth is to show if a temperature taken is too high. And the fifth is to keep track of the area a person works in. Another step that we had to take before we were going to start building the actual software itself is we had to decide how feasible it would be. We found that our application that we were going to build would be economically, technologically, operationally, and timely feasible for the client. Software is economically feasible as the program will be run on Microsoft Excel, and all companies' computers have this software. The software is technologically feasible as many people in the company that are higher ups will be able to analyze the information easily, as they all have vast experience with Microsoft Excel. It will be operationally feasible, as it will allow for the foreman of an area to take temperatures and input them the same way that he would normally do on a piece of paper, only on a computer Excel file. And there will be time feasibility, as it will allow for data to be transferred instantly between all of those that have access to the program. After determining that our program was feasible and actually building it, we were finally able to describe it. The description of the system is as follows. The system was created in an Excel file and will require the foreman of each area to be in charge of filling in the information for each person for the day. Included are pivot tables that relay important information to managers and vice presidents on the interactions of workers and trends in health, and there is also a sheet with contact information to contact employees who might want to be tested for the virus due to contacts with another person who is also tested positive. After building and describing the system, we finally thought of some possible errors that could cause issues with information. Some of these errors include that the thermometers need to be checked and calibrated regularly to avoid bad data from being collected. The system could crash, so data that is collected needs to be backed up to avoid being lost. And also, a foreman could forget to take a person's temperature if an employee enters through a different entrance or does not show up to a checkpoint. Now that you have heard what this system does, let's see it in action. The primary sheet that will be used in this program is labeled as daily temperatures. This sheet is formatted as a table on Excel and has many different categories that must be tracked at the beginning of every work shift by the foreman of the area that the employee will be working for that day. The categories that will be tracked include the date the temperature is taken, which is right here, the name of the employee, the temperature of the employee, the type of job that they do for that day, the area that they're working in, if they have any COVID symptoms, even if they don't actually have COVID, and also if they ate in the lunchroom that day. As you can see, there are quite a few things to take note of. So in order to facilitate the job of the foreman and make their life easier, there have been quality of life features added to the table. The first thing to take note of is the daily temperature column, which is in column C. Under the daily temperature column, there has been conditional formatting inputted to allow a foreman to immediately see if they have to send the person home or not, depending on the color of the daily temperature inputted. To be specific, red means that it is a high-grade fever and the person must go home immediately. Yellow means that they must go to the doctor's office and get a note that states that it is not COVID, and green means that they are good to work for the day. The second quality of life feature of this program is the drop-down menus that have been formed under the type of job and area columns. These columns are being grouped together as they are both linked to other Excel sheets in the program and both operate in a similar manner. Instead of the foreman having to type the job of the employee that is coming in for the day, there is simply a small drop-down menu that has a list of all of the jobs that the person could be completing for the day. And this is how it works. You click on it, and you see that the jobs here can range all the way from the president of the company all the way to the machine operators that are out on the floor. This allows for the foreman to save time and allows for a simpler process for recording the employee that's showing up. Nearly identical to this is the area section, in which there is also an Excel sheet linked to it that allows for a drop-down menu to make the entry process much faster for the foreman in charge. In the area drop-down menu, we are able to see all of the different sections of the 3 plants, each plant bearing a different letter for the plant number and a different number for area of the plant. Under COVID symptoms and lunchroom, there has also been a quality of life update in which we have created a drop-down menu to say yes or no, so the foreman does not have to include this information. In accordance with the area drop-down menu is not only the name of the area, but also the foreman in charge of the area of the plant. This is shown in the sheet titled Foreman in Area. This allows for the vice president to see what foreman was in charge of taking temperatures and ask for a more defined list of what precautions they have taken to prevent COVID outbreaks. Now that we have discussed the basics of the program itself, we can get into the exciting pivot tables that have been created to show information in an easy-to-read and manageable way. The first pivot table to discuss is the employee temp chart. Under this sheet, an employer will be able to sort employees by their name and sort the data by the day it was taken in order to see a specific result that they were intending on finding. This can help the vice president by allowing him to see as many days of temperatures as desired based on the employee and see trends in the person's health and when they may have been initially infected. So for example, if we only wanted to see the day of 9/23, we could select 9/23. And if we only wanted to see, let's say, Brian Johnson, we could click Brian Johnson and see that Brian Johnson's temperature on 9/23/2020 was 99.7. The second pivot table to discuss is named Temperature by Area. In this chart, the main focus is to relate the temperatures of all of the employees in the areas of the plant to one another. This is especially helpful in being able to determine the potential flow of COVID between employees because we are able to see the area that workers were in and the health trends of all the co-workers in that area. For example, if one of the employees who is working at section, say, A4 had a high temperature, we can see that Tammy Glockner did. We can now see that all of the people at the plant the next day had a temperature of over 100, which is a high-grade fever. So we can get in contact with all of the people and advise them to possibly get tested for COVID. Once it has been decided that a person has come into contact with another person, and the company decides that they should inform the person that they should get tested, the company can use the contact information sheet. Under this sheet, the employer will be easily able to find the employee that they need by selecting the name of the employee and finding the information instantly. So, for example, if we wanted to find Tammy Glockner, we could scroll down and find Tammy Glockner and inform her that she should be tested for COVID-19. Now, even after all that explanation, some of you may say, why is your system the best solution? Well, here's why our system is the correct solution for Schaller. It allows for the vice president of the company and other managers to see trends in employee health and track the potential spread of COVID to keep their employees safe. It accomplishes being available to the vice president in that it is stored in a company drive that they will have instant access to the information. And it also accomplishes establishing and predicting trends in health through the use of pivot tables in the system. We had a few key takeaways from the production of this software. The first takeaway that we had was understanding how important practicality of design is. When we were considering inputs of information, we had to understand that the people putting in the information might make mistakes, and as such, we attempted to build an input system in which information could easily be input and there would be little room for error in data gathering. We also learned a lot about application stewardship, in which we had to make sure that the new system would not only be more information rich than the old system, but would also not increase the difficulty of data analyzation and inputs. In essence, we wanted to make sure the program would not cause any of the people in charge of analyzing or inputting information to say, "I don't want it," or "it doesn't work." We also learned about working as a group. Though we do not have many of our group mates left, those still working have helped to make the project better than it could have been with only one person. Lastly, but most importantly, we learned about the flow of data in a system. We learned how different Excel features could all work together to form a more perfect functioning system than the massively outdated one, just by understanding how the information could be put together to form meaningful data to the vice president of the company. I hope that you all enjoyed the presentation and have a good day.